TCU football is 2-0 after a rousing 45-0 win. Pitching a shutout's never a bad thing, Melissa, even if it does come at the at the sacrifice, I guess, of an FCS opponent. But hey,
at least
2-0.
It was a sacrifice.
It's true. It could have been way worse. Looking at you, Notre Dame. Anyways, we've got that. We've got men's basketball hosting 3 top 100 recruits this weekend as the Horned Frogs take on UCF. Plus, a team is ranked for TCU that has never been ranked before. All that and maybe a little bit more on the Frogs Insider. Hello and welcome in to Frogs Insider presented by the Flying T Club. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treebwasser. Melissa?
Jamie.
At the end of the day, it's good to be 2-0.
It is always better to be 2-0 than to not be 2-0.
This is true. And there are so many schools that are not 2-0. I'm looking at you, Notre Dame, after your loss to Northern Illinois. I'm looking at you, Texas Tech, after your mollywhopping at the hands of Washington State, which I believe, Melissa, I said last week could happen.
You did. You were all over that one.
Because here's the thing. Washington State is still really good, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won the Apple Cup this week. Would not be surprised by that at all.
That would be not a shocking, but that would definitely be a surprising result.
So, but yes, TCU is 2-0 after a 45-0 win over the Long Island Sharks. We're going to talk about that game. We're going to talk about what went right, what maybe is still a little bit of a concern coming out of that win, because there are, I think, a few question marks still. And then, yes, we're going to break down some basketball visitors that are going to be in town this weekend. And TCU volleyball is ranked for the first time in the program's history, which is a very cool feat.
Crazy.
For that program, and they've earned it so far early on this year. We're going to talk about what they've been up to early on in their schedule. But first, let's talk about our presenting sponsor, Melissa, the Flying T Club. TCU's NIL collective, Flying T Club, supports over 110 TCU student athletes while also working with multiple organizations in the Fort Worth community. They are one of the few NIL collectives that has maintained their 501c3 nonprofit status, and that's because of the work they do with organizations in and around Fort Worth and because of the way they partner TCU student athletes with those organizations. So if you want to learn more about the Flying T Club, go ahead and head over to flyingtclub.com. You can see all of the organizations that they're partnered with, profiles of the student athletes that they support, and find multiple different ways to get engaged, whether financially, volunteer-wise, whatever. Flying T would love to partner up with you as well to continue supporting TCU and its student athletes the way that they do. Very excited about that partnership still, Melissa. It's been pretty cool.
We are. It is awesome to be a part of the Flying T Club. It's also awesome to be a part of the Republic of Football podcast network, as a part of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. As we get ready to kick off Big 12 play, we will be able to partner with a lot of our fellow Dave Campbell's podcasts across the network.
Yes.
And that's because every single team in the state of Texas, every Division I team, has its own dedicated podcast. That means when we get to talking about SMU, Baylor, Texas Tech, all of our friends across the state, we will get to talk to some of our friends across the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Network too. There is not a podcast for UCF because UCF is not in Texas.
Breaking news.
Geography A+ over here. But we have, Jamie, and I'm very excited about this, not one, but 2 UCF previews dropping this week because I dropped that I had a big guest potentially on the line. I was able to secure that big guest, but a little bit late. So I also have another excellent person to preview. So we'll probably drop one of them in the show Thursday, maybe one of them a little bit earlier this week. But there will be lots of content. You guys will be well ready for the UCF Knights coming to town this week. Yes,
Melissa, let's break down TCU on Saturday night against the Long Island Sharks. Interesting win, 45-0. A lot went right for the Horned Frogs, but realistically, what do we really take away from a game like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to judge, these early season body bag games, other than the fact that, like we said, at least we won, which is not something that everybody across the FBS can say after week 2. But, I think as a confidence builder, there are some positives as a getting guys live game reps. There are some positives. Like I would give a huge point in the positive category to Jeremy Payne, who got some really great reps in the fourth quarter of that game. Got to return a kick, got to get some fresh carries. I thought that was a great thing for TCU as they really do try to identify who that running back is going to be behind Cam Cook. Sonny Dykes had a lot of really complimentary things to say about Jeremy after the game, and as Dominic Johnson and Trey Sanders haven't really been as involved in the offense as maybe we anticipated, there's definitely an opportunity for the true freshman to get more live reps moving into conference play. So that's a positive. I think we saw the TCU offense once again start a little bit slowly and struggle to get into a rhythm, but at one point they had 4 or 5 straight touchdown drives where Josh Hoover, I think, was making great reads, was hitting the right receiver, was showing the accuracy that he's been praised for throughout, the fall camp and his short TCU career. Savion Williams, I finally got my Savion Williams trick play that I've been begging for. I almost got my prediction correct of being second on the team in touchdowns, at least through 2 weeks, but JoJo Earl was 5 yards short and later ended up scoring, but they were able to try a couple of new things without having to empty the bag too much of all the tricks and show UCF a whole lot more on film. But it was a fun night. There was a ton of students there, 6,100, fourth largest student section crowd in history. The atmosphere through the first half at the stadium was unbelievable. And maybe most importantly, Jamie, LT recreated the electric slide from the early 2000s. And they showed it on the Jumbotron, and those of us of a certain age in the stadium were just on our knees thankful that was something we got to see. And he was dressed by none other than Jonathan Song.
What age is that, Melissa?
We're not talking about that. We're not talking about what age that is.
But he was dressed out in his patented white suit from the original version of the video. Jonathan Song dressed him up nicely and made it his own appearance in the video as well, which was pretty cool. Such a cool thing. Heard from folks that saw it that said that it was just super cool. Super cool thing. And shout out to how many Hall of Famers in the NFL do you think would stop down to recreate that video for their alma mater?
None. And you know what's so great about it too? When I went back up to the press box in the second half, it was asking the comms people about it, and they said they didn't have to ask. They just kind of mentioned it, and he immediately was on board to do it because that's just the kind of guy LT is, which is incredible. That. And we have got to, at some point, we're going to need to get John Song on this podcast because 100%. This man now has dressed TCU players for Big 12 Media Days. He dressed LT for that recreation, that magical recreation. So we got to hear the behind the scenes here on Jonathan Song, suit maker to the stars.
Absolutely. I would love that. Jonathan, I think you listen, man. So if you're hearing this right now, hit me up. Hit Melissa up. Let's have you on the show. This is the official invite. The official invite to come on the show and talk about all the sweet stuff you're doing now. But hey, Melissa, the thing that stands out to me, suit stuff. Sweet suit stuff.
There you go.
But Melissa, the thing that stood out to me about this game is we talked through week 1 about the efficiencies that we saw in the red zone from this offense. And yes, FCS opponent, take that for what you will. Last year's FCS opponent didn't go this smoothly. But TCU was 6 for 6 in the red zone on Saturday night with 6 touchdowns. That's as efficient as you can get when it comes to a red zone offense. And they ran the ball well. They ran for multiple touchdowns. Cam Cook ran for 3. Dominic Johnson ran for another. It was all around a very good, very efficient, what you want to see kind of night when it comes to the red zone offense for TCU.
Yeah, again, you can control who you're playing, but for the players, they don't control who shows up next to the schedule. It's their job to execute at a high level, and they did that. I mean, do you learn a lot about your team? No, but are you glad to see them build on their performance at Stanford and continue to improve? Absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that they did what they needed to do. And the defense pitching a shutout there, I think, is really important too. So, again, we've seen plenty of – oh, God, there goes Bauer. We've seen plenty of FBS teams give up a lot of touchdowns to lower-level opponents, and TCU just went in and dominated exactly how they were expected to.
For sure. Really cool to see them shut out LIU. Not really give LIU much opportunity. Under 200 yards of offense on the night for them. Not a productive evening for the LIU offense whatsoever, which is frankly very good. Got a lot of, and you mentioned this already too, Melissa. A lot of young guys on both sides of the football got some good experience on Saturday night, which is one of the things that you hope to see when you see an FCS game on the schedule. Okay, so number one issue, don't get out of there without any injuries, which TCU managed to do, and get your young guys some live reps on the field, which TCU also managed to do. The good things that came away, red zone efficiency, shut out by the defense, yada, yada, yada. But there are maybe one or two questions still that we can ask about what's going to happen this next week when UCF comes to town. Big 12 opponent, pretty solid defensive front. Because I think there are still some questions about how well TCU can run the football right now. Cam Cook only averaged a little over 4 yards a carry in this game. He was the only TCU runner that averaged at least 4 yards a carry. There were moments where it didn't look like the running backs were very patient. There were moments where the offensive line didn't quite get blocked up the way they needed to. In your estimation, Melissa, where do we ask the question about TCU's capability of running the football? Is that mostly with the running backs at this point? Is that mostly with the offensive line, or are you kind of splitting it 50-50?
I'm a little bit split at this point. I think one of the things that has been surprising is how good the offensive line looked to be run blocking in camp. We have not seen that translate in either of the games. But I do also think that part of that falls on just the youth and inexperience of Cam Cook. One thing I've noticed about him is he seems to be a little bit more of a grinder. We haven't seen as much of that explosiveness that we thought we'd see until the second half. In the first half, I think he's it takes him a while to find his rhythm. It takes him a while to kind of find this chemistry and to kind of anticipate where the hole is going to come, because I don't think that the line is getting those blocks exactly. I just don't think they're executing at a super high level right now, basically, and things aren't developing the way that they're expected to in the timeline they're expected to. And so a little bit slow developing and opening the holes, and then Cam Cook tends to take a while to get going. I think if I should have pulled this up and I didn't think about it, but if you pull up his second half stats versus his first half stats in both of those games, I'm going to guess his yards per carry goes up significantly, because he does seem to be one of those backs that gets stronger as he goes along. And I think that's true with the offensive line too. I mean, they've got pretty good size. They still just haven't developed, that continuity. Part of that is too, Sonny Dykes is not playing five guys in the offensive line. He's still rotating, and I don't think that's because it was LIU, because we saw him do the same thing against Stanford, and he talked about purposefully doing that after the game at Stanford. And so I wonder how much of that is he truly trying to keep guys fresh, which was kind of his reasoning after the Stanford game, or is he still not confident in who the right five guys are? And so that's hard for a young running back, because every guy is going to operate slightly differently up front. And so if he's seeing seven guys instead of the same five, I don't feel that he's quite anticipating, when to make his move, because he's not getting a consistency out of when those holes are opening up. So there's still a lot of work to do. Like you mentioned, UCF's front is way improved than it was a year ago. They got some dogs on there for sure. So this is going to be a really good challenge. Cam Cook needs to be better, but ultimately so does the offensive line. And the one thing we can say is Cam Cook has looked great in the second half of two games. If he can start that strong, I think TCU's got a great chance Saturday, but that means the offensive line has to start strong too.
I agree with that. And if you look at the snap counts from this game against Long Island, they had 70 offensive snaps as a team. TCU did. No offensive lineman played more than 60. Only 3 played more than 50, and that was Brockermeyer with 58 at center, Deary with 56 at left guard, and Mike Nichols with 52 at right tackle. Carson Bruno and Bless Harris both only played 45 snaps. Ben Taylor Whitfield and Remington Strickland both played 35 snaps. You got some snaps for some really young guys as Cooper Powers, Quentin Harris, and Robbie Rochester all saw the field for 8 snaps. But like you said, some of that is let's get some guys some reps, and some of that is still very truly TCU trying to figure out who the best 5 are. PFF grade-wise, it's pretty clearly Mike Nichols at right tackle. He's had the highest offensive line grade for over the first 2 games of the year. And I know that PFF grades are imperfect in a lot of ways, but it is just another data point for us to kind of look at the bigger picture of what's going on with the offensive line, one guy who has put together two pretty poor performances from a PFF grading standpoint is left tackle Bless Harris. He hasn't had above a 60 in either game so far this year. 60 is kind of like the baseline average for a performer. So he's been, according to PFF's grading system, a little bit below average at left tackle for the first two games. He got a 54.8 against LIU in those 45 snaps, and that raises some questions about TCU's line heading into conference play against what you mentioned already is a really strong UCF front, even if they are already dealing with a couple of injuries, especially in the interior of that line. But I know you're talking preview of that game with a couple of really excellent guests this week, so I'm not going to spoil too much of it. I will say this, though. It was very cool to see how many, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 players catch passes on Saturday night, spreading the ball around. The main guys still had the bulk of the targets. Savion Williams finished with 5 catches for 39 yards. You know, JoJo Earl, like you mentioned, 3 catches and a touchdown. Eric McAllister, it was good to see him. He shifted. It was interesting. He worked most of the fall at Z and then showed up in this game and was Savion's primary backup at X. So interesting to see that shift. I wonder if that's because of Jack Besh coming out at Z and having a really good week 1 and wanting to maybe rotate him in there with Dalen Wright a little bit more, who we still did not see in this game. So maybe there's some lingering issue there. Sonny Dykes hinted last week that we might see him and JoJo back. We saw JoJo, but we didn't see Dalen. Also, it was good to see Braylon James get some reps, the Notre Dame transfer who's still really young, get out there with Ken Seals and catch a couple passes. And speaking of Ken Seals, we got our first Ken Seals experience of the year, and he looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think, you know, with the wide receiver, with the depth, it's going to be so interesting to see how the offensive side of the football manages the rotations there. And getting JoJo back was huge. I thought he looked really fresh. Sonny Dykes said that he brought a lot of the explosiveness that they were expecting to see from him. He got a touchdown pass. He did some things well. McAllister, like you mentioned, he's such a weapon because of his combination of size and kind of ability to win balls in the air. They didn't give him a ton of opportunities as he's still working himself back from some being banged up a little bit, but he has so much potential to really kind of change the way that TCU can operate down the field. And we haven't seen a lot of balls go deep down the field. Hoover threw just an absolute seam, just beautiful seam pass to was that Chase Curtis, I think it was. But we haven't seen them try to stretch the field a whole lot through these first 2 games. But getting a guy like McAllister back and the speed of JoJo Earl, I think, is huge. Like you mentioned, Jack Besh didn't have nearly the game that he had against Stanford, but he also wasn't needed to have that. But he has just been so consistently a problem. Defenses really shifted towards him and opened things up for even a guy like Savion, who had another really, really solid game, and got to throw the first pass of his TCU career, which was a lot of fun. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't learn a whole lot, but TCU did what it needed to do on both sides of the ball. The defense remained super, super aggressive. LIU was in negative rushing until like late in the second quarter, I think. They really didn't do anything through the first 3 quarters when mostly starters were on the field for TCU. I love the rotations that we're getting on the front line, on the defensive side of the ball, how fresh guys are. It is so fun to see 5 or 6, like the whole like front 5 or 6 coming off the field and going on the field all at once, and just watching the other offensive line go, oh God, these guys have fresh legs. And you could almost see LIU's shoulders just sink when they made some of those mass substitutions up front. I thought Johnny played really well. Jamel Johnson, I thought, had another just solid game. Nnamdi got the pick, and so our guys with interceptions so far are Nnamdi Obiezar and Timon Mitchell, just like we all drew it up, which is great. But plenty of positives. Still have lots of questions going into Saturday night. UCF is far and away the toughest test that this team has played this season, but based on the atmosphere in the Carter last weekend, I think that we are in for a potentially really special night Saturday, and I am so fired up for week 3, even though I am absolutely terrified of this game and KJ Jefferson and the running attack of UCF.
Here's the thing, and I know that you're good. Like we've already teased a few times, you're going to talk with some UCF folks about this. KJ Jefferson hasn't run the ball a ton this year. Now he hasn't had to because they've played Sam Houston State and New Hampshire. Guys, yeah. But this is a run-first offense that has not featured KJ Jefferson to this point. Over 800 yards rushing and 11 rushing touchdowns through 2 games. He doesn't have a rushing touchdown, I believe. I think he only has like 7 or 8 carries total. And so I'm with you. He is an absolutely huge threat in the run game. I still don't know how much he's going to run compared to some of the backs that they've got who have been home run hitters so far this year. There's no question TCU's going to have to put 8 in the box. There's no question that TCU's going to have to get in the backfield and disrupt the running game early to kind of set the tone. But like you mentioned, it's going to be rowdy in the Carter. It is a blackout for a night game in the Carter, which is something that I know we all love. Super hyped about it. Excited to see what the university does around this game to create some really fun and unique in-game entertainment stuff. Melissa, beyond the LT video, we know that Jeremiah Donati teased prior to the first home game that there would be some fun, new, exciting things happening at the Carter this year. Did you pick up on any of the fun and new, exciting things that are happening at the Carter this year?
Yeah, I mean, they have a new in-game stadium host. They did lots of games. I mean, I think we were all curious what the new timing stuff would look like with the 2-minute warning and all that, and it just feels like there's really long commercial breaks now. I don't know if there are more of them, but they do feel long, and I thought the pacing of the in-stadium stuff was really, really great. They pretty much had a student involvement or fan involvement activity at every single timeout. They did a lot of giveaways. You had the Showgirls, you had the Rangers, you had the T-shirt toss. Super Frog was wearing jeans at one point. I don't know if that's what Donati was alluding to, but that was a thing that happened. It's something I need to pay more attention to this week because I get I'm either locked when I'm on the field. I'm locked in, taking photos and
locked in.
Or frankly checking my phone during timeouts to see what people on social media are saying about the game. But I will say the students were super, super engaged through the entire first half. Like the second half, it was over, everybody was gone, that's fine. But so I think they did a good job of the lighting and the stuff that was going around, the what are the things that call the display boards that inside the stadium. It seemed like there was constantly a lot of things to kind of keep your attention, draw your attention. So I do think the TCU game day experience is really exceptional, especially for the size university we are. And I thought Saturday was a great way to kick that off.
Awesome. Well, that's really good, and looking forward to what happens against UCF. TCU's 2-0. There's no better place to be than 2-0 2 games into the season. So I'd say so far it's feeling like the Frogs are heading in the right direction this season. Now it's just about keeping that momentum going.
Yeah. And you've got a big month to finish out. I mean, open Big 12 play. Obviously, have the Iron Skillet game coming up, and then a trip to Kansas. I mean, September is not going to be an easy schedule for TCU, but if they just need to, I hate to cliche it, but they just need to keep taking it 1 week at a time. And I think Sonny has set the tone appropriately this year in a way that we didn't necessarily see last year. So I'm still cautiously optimistic.
Sure.
Not getting ahead of myself. I like what I'm seeing, but I've been, people have been asking me what I think of TCU this year. My canned answer has very much been like, ask me after week 3. So I feel like I'll have a much better read on this team after the matchup with UCF.
UCF and TCU kick off at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on Fox. Big night.
Big game.
Big opponent. Big channel. Always fun to see. The next week, we also know now what time TCU and SMU will kick off the Iron Skillet on. Less of a big channel, the CW, but don't
this is
say that
news for me.
Don't say that to SMU fans that the CW isn't on the same level as ESPN or Fox because they'll get really upset about it, Melissa. Because didn't you know 700,000 people watched the Virginia Tech game on that channel last year? But this game will kick off over in Dallas at 5 p.m. Central. So in late evening, early night game because the CW does not align their kickoff times with the rest of college football because they're edgy and different and they know most people aren't watching. So maybe tune in early and catch an episode of Dawson's Creek and then watch TCU play the Ponies as the Iron Skillet is one game closer to coming to a temporary, maybe permanent end.
5 p.m. I hate that.
It's brutal time.
It's a brutal.
It's like I'm 68 and I'm going to go get dinner now.
Yeah. I also listen, I love a night game, but as a woman of an advanced age here at this stage, 3 weeks in a row of night games, it's going to be tough on Grandma Melissa. She was struggling on Saturday. I was yawning at the second half. I was like, I am not old enough to be this old in the second half of a football, or it's going to be four. That's 4 evening games in a row
Yeah.
for TCU.
Are you
That's
saying
crazy.
are you saying that TCU's night game schedule is cutting into your blue plate special Denny's time, old person dinner time? For those that aren't watching on the YouTube channel, she is just staring into the camera right now. Anyways, TCU at 6:30 against UCF, kicking off on Fox. That is the Horned Frogs' next game as they try to keep things in the win column for the third week in a row here in the 2024 season. Melissa, we're going to talk a little bit about some basketball stuff, but let's just reset and once again mention our presenting sponsor, the Flying T Club. Go to flyingtclub.com and make sure that you have checked out all the opportunities that you have to participate and partner with the flyingtclub.com. And by doing so, sponsoring and supporting TCU student athletes, because the NIL era is here. It's not going anywhere. It might look different next year. It might not. Who knows? There was a judge ruling last week that maybe has thrown a little bit of a wrench in the chain. My plans this midweek for the preview episode, since you're doing a great job covering UCF, is to talk a little bit more about that. I've got some irons in the fire that I'm trying to get some more info about before we hit record on that episode. But, yeah, Melissa, we don't know what NIL is going to look like in the future, but we know what it looks like right now. And the Flying T Club is the NIL collective for the Horned Frogs. They are the ones that are supporting over 110 TCU student athletes, partnering them with organizations in and around the city of Fort Worth as well. So flyingtclub.com is the place to go to find out how you can get involved with the FTC.
And you
All right,
should
Melissa.
get involved with the FTC.
Absolutely. All right, Melissa. TCU basketball. Typically, this point in the fall sits on the back burner a little bit. I know that we don't always talk about it as much as it deserves in the early part of football season just because we're so locked in on Horned Frogs football. But I wrote an article today for Horned Frog Blitz. I hope folks went and read it because TCU is hosting 3 top 100 recruits for the 2025 class this upcoming weekend. It's the perfect weekend, right? So this is how recruiting in non-football sports goes. They look at the TCU football schedule and they say, that could be a good game. That could be an electric atmosphere. Let's let part of our pitch to these student athletes be, hey, come play for championships in the Big 12, play for national championships, get an excellent education, have a wonderful student experience. And part of that student experience is these amazing big-time football atmospheres. So TCU basketball, Jamie Dixon and his staff are going to try and do that this weekend as the Frogs play UCF. They are bringing, like I said, 3 top 100 recruits for the 2025 class. The first one is Caden Edwards, a shooting guard from Duncanville. We know that TCU and Jamie Dixon have gone to this Duncanville well before in the form of Micah Peavy. So they've got a good relationship over there in Duncanville. And Caden Edwards is the number 56 overall player, according to 24/7 Sports. In the 2025 class, he's the number 12 shooting guard, and he's the number 6 player in Texas. Melissa, can you tell me when the last time it was that TCU got a top 10 player from the state of Texas directly out of high school?
On a visit or to sign?
To sign.
To sign? Never?
No? Not never.
No, not never. Mike Miles wasn't top 10, was he?
Yes, he was.
Oh, so was it Mike Miles?
I'm double checking now because I'm not sure. I think there might have been someone last year. Hang on. There was, in fact, one last year. There was, in fact, one last year.
Wait, so
David
what
Punch.
Could probably be, David Punch. So this isn't an abnormality. This is a trend.
This is a trend. This is a trend of having a top 10 visitor from the state, and there are 2 on this list that are visiting this weekend. Jamie Dixon has quietly picked up a lot of recruiting momentum, specifically in high school. We spent a lot of time last year talking about the number 3 overall portal class. We've talked a lot about the portal class this year as well. But Jamie Dixon put together the highest rated high school recruiting class in program history last year. The high school class checked in at number 18 in the country. First time they've ever been top 20. And it's looking like if he can land a couple of these guys that are visiting this weekend, that they're trending in that direction again. And it starts with Caden Edwards. Edwards is one of several top recruits from the DFW area who is interested in TCU. He recently listed a top 5. He's getting closer and closer to making his decision. TCU was a part of that top 5, along with USC, LSU, Colorado, and Oklahoma State. He also has an Arkansas offer. He's got an offer from Kansas State, Auburn, Texas, and several others as well, as he tries to find where he wants to play college. So this is a kid who's got a tremendous offer list. And go for it.
I'm wondering, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but do you think that part of what the portal does on a positive side for a program like TCU is local kids that maybe were more apt to go to a quote-unquote bigger name university are looking to stay local, to play in front of their family, to maybe try to, TCU's got a very top-heavy roster when it comes to age. Maybe some of these younger guys are saying, I'll play close to home, I'll try to get on the court right away, and if it doesn't work out, it's so much easier to leave. I wonder if that is maybe kind of a reverse positive for Jamie Dixon, because he has been so successful in bringing these top talented kids that a few years ago probably are not giving TCU a look.
That's fair. I think that's part of it for sure, because like you said, the mobility is so much more available to student athletes now, especially in basketball, where, okay, I'm going to hit the portal. It didn't work out for me. I mean, look at the kid the point guard that was here a few years ago who went to Tulsa for a year, had a great year, and is now at Memphis, right? So PJ Haggerty. And so that's definitely a possibility for some of these guys. But I also think that part of Jamie Dixon's philosophy is similar to that of Sonny Dykes, where if you're consistently trying to rebuild your roster out of the transfer portal every year, you're going to create some obstacles for yourself that you really don't have to create and that you shouldn't be creating. Because if you're at the tier of basketball that TCU is, which I would say consistently you should be a top 40 program in the country, right? Make the tournament every year. When you're at the peak of your recruiting cycle and development cycle, make a deep run in the tournament. Haven't quite seen that yet, but there should be some consistency when it comes to what your program looks like year over year. TCU isn't one of those schools, at least right now, where you're going to be recruiting a ton of one and dones, and so you want to have some roster consistency, and you want to show that you can develop some guys who maybe aren't quite one and done. If they have a great year, they could be. Maybe they're a two and done kind of thing. Get them in here, develop them, and show what they can do when they are juniors and seniors instead of freshmen and sophomores. And so I fully agree. I think that the portal, kind of that reverse effect, helps TCU with high school students. And I think that when you look at TCU's growing track record of developing talent, Desmond Bain, Mike Miles, RJ Nemhard, Kenrich Williams, even though he was a transfer in, Emmanuel Miller, right? Some of these guys that really stuck it out for the long haul, the pitch becomes easier. Because, like, hey, regardless of what happens, we're going to develop you. We're going to set you in motion in the right track. So why don't you come give TCU a shot right out of the gate?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I don't say that in taking credit away from Jamie Dixon. Yeah. But I think it's so easy to get lost in the negative side of the portal that it does help for a program like TCU that is still, we shouldn't be saying this in year 8 or 9 or whatever it is, but it's still trying to become that top 40 program that you mentioned. It's still looking for that first deep NCAA tournament run. Something is going to have to get them over the edge, and I'm really happy to see, and we've got 2 more guys to talk about, but to see Jamie Dixon really hitting high school recruiting hard at a time where a lot of programs, bigger programs, are just looking to let other places develop guys and then just take them when they get there. He wants to build that continuity, he wants to build that center, and then fill in with portal, because in the Big 12, which is going to be a basketball conference like unlike anything we've ever seen potentially, that's going to be important that you don't just build for the now, but that you're building for the constant.
100%. And I think that's another part of the appeal for some local kids who are maybe a little bit higher rated than what we've seen TCU get in the past is, if I get my shot, I'm getting my shot in the Big 12. Yeah. Like, I could go grind it out in the SEC. The Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. The ACC is pretty top heavy, and if I don't want to go to Villanova or UConn or Gonzaga, or maybe those schools aren't looking at me quite as much, TCU is a great landing spot for a lot of those really, really talented high school kids who can still likely make an impact right out of the gate. I we're going to see true freshmen in the rotation for TCU this year, regardless of the fact that they just brought 6 guys in from the transfer portal and still have Ernest Uday on the roster. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that we've finally gotten to the point with Jamie Dixon's recruiting out of high school where he's getting talented enough kids that they are capable of playing when they're freshmen and they don't need a year to develop. So, like I mentioned, Caden Edwards is going to be on campus this weekend. He's a 6'2", 165-pound shooting guard. True two, even though he's only 6'2", a little undersized there. Left-handed shooter as well. Brandon Jenkins wrote up a little bit about him last fall, talked about his deep range and his quick release, really consistent shooter from behind the arc, and we know how desperate TCU has been in the past for consistent three-point shooting. So Caden Edwards kind of fits that bill, checks that box for the Horned Frogs. 2 other guys that are going to be on campus as well from St. Francis Episcopal School in Houston. 6'10", 200-pound power forward Nigel Walls will be on campus. Power forward. He's
power forward.
Stretch 4, baby. He is the number 61 overall player in the 2025 class, number 13 power forward in the country, number 7 player in the state of Texas. So he's younger. He's on the young side for the 2025 class. Still a project, still pretty raw, but he has shown excellent range. He's a true stretch 4, and TCU has been in on him from the jump. They offered this kid in December of 2022.
Wow.
They have been around for a while. And as he's continued to rise and gain more offers, and he's got offers. He's got offers. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Kansas State, Oklahoma, USC, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Like the list goes on and on and on of some really good programs. And TCU's been on him since the beginning. I really like TCU's chances here. For Nigel Walls, big kid out of Houston, Texas. And then the third guy is an overtime elite kid who plays in Atlanta by the name of Amari Evans. He's 6'5", 200, another shooting guard, number 96 overall in the class, according to 24/7 Sports, the 19 shooting guard, number 11 player in Georgia. He is coming off of a visit to Pitt, which he's originally from Pittsburgh. He's already visited Tennessee, which I would assume is the front runner at this point. He's also visited Ole Miss, and he's got a visit after TCU scheduled for Xavier, who I think is pretty heavily in the mix as well. He released a top 10 earlier this summer. TCU was a part of it, which is why he's getting on campus for a visit. But this is a kid who averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists in just under 28 minutes a game for the City Reapers in the OTE League last season. So he's a guy who's played with elite high school talent for the last year. And he's got a teammate, by the way, whose name is escaping me right now, who isn't visiting this weekend, but is going to schedule a visit with TCU in the future. So we'll keep you up to date on that as well. But yeah, these are 3 kids that are incredibly good basketball players in their own right now, who are looking for an opportunity to play early. And I think that's a pretty big part of TCU's pitch these days is, hey, come in and earn it, and anything can happen, and you're talented enough to see the court pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, just to be in on those type of guys, at this stage in the process, I think is a huge deal. And you can tell that Jamie Dixon is putting his work in early with these projects. And I do think he has an exceptional eye for talent. I think we've seen that consistently. Yeah. Desmond Bain is a great example of that, of being able to identify guys that have some growing to do and then showing that he can develop them over the course of their college career and turn them into one of the biggest contracts in the NBA in the case of Desmond. So awesome to see. I think, like you said, that definitely intentional to bring them this weekend. And hopefully TCU football holds up its end of the bargain and we get a great game and help sell the whole experience of being a Horned Frog. Yes,
winning helps more than just football. It's the rising tide floats all boats situation. Also, another fun fact about a former Horned Frog, Jameer Nelson Jr., I don't know if you saw this, Melissa, was recently named to the Team USA men's basketball 3-on-3 roster.
I did not see
that,
but that's brilliant.
Yes, he is going to be competing for Team USA in the 3-on-3 basketball, similar to Haley Van Lith doing that for the women's side here in Paris this past summer. So it's kind of cool. TCU maybe is like a feeder school for Team USA 3-on-3 basketball now.
Well, and that men's 3-on-3 was bad. They were bad.
Yes. And you know what they were missing?
The playmaking guard that could get to the rim and finish.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah. Jameer's game, honestly, tailor-made for 3-on-3. Like that is
I
such
agree.
a great fit for him. I think he could do well. Speaking of Haley Van Lith, she was the first Riff Ram of the year. I forgot to mention that. We talked about football.
Which
was awesome, and she was there on the field and had her medal and everything. Very, very cool. It's her birthday today. I saw TCU posted about that. So happy birthday,
Happy birthday.
HDL. Can't wait to see you on the court.
Absolutely. Going to be a blast. Women's hoops this year and men's hoops.
Can't wait.
Everything
So
looks
excited.
good when it comes to hardwood
Be a good year
for basketball.
Could be a good
Yeah.
year for TCU athletics.
Let's hope so. It's already been a good year,
Yeah.
by the way, for TCU volleyball, who found themselves ranked at number 25 for the first time in program history.
Crazy.
It is wild that a team that was unranked at the beginning of the year goes 2-2 in their first 4 matches and finds their way in to the top 25.
Yeah.
It's a testament to how hard this non-conference schedule has been for the Horned Frogs early, and this is how Jason Williams likes it, Melissa, because this has been since day one. He's scheduled incredibly challenging non-conference schedules to get his teams ready to rock and up and running early.
Yeah, it is a change in philosophy from a lot of what we've seen in TCU athletics. We're seeing more of those changes filter into other programs too. But to go up to Omaha, to take a set off of Nebraska at home, like we talked about last week, to go play these other powerhouse programs in your preseason. They've been on the road. I mean, pretty consistently. It's an impressive feat. You can see that the talent is there. You can see that the team is together. Their record has nothing to do with them not holding up their end of the bargain. It's who they've played, and they have really pushed these great programs to the brink. And so they're hosting this weekend. There'll be games all day Thursday over at Schollmeyer. Friday they play UCLA Friday night, which I think will be great. If you are in town on Thursday, if you're hanging around TCU, you can catch soccer and volleyball. Unfortunately, they both start at around the same time, but I'm hoping to catch at least half of each here on Thursday night and check them out. And then that UCLA game should be pretty fun Friday. So really, really fun weekend coming up for TCU athletics, and volleyball is playing a huge part of that as they kind of finish out their non-conference slate here over the next couple of weeks and get ready for another loaded Big 12 season, but one in which, I mean, TCU should not only be a tournament team, but I think they could be a real problem in this league as good as it is based on what we've seen out of them so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every team that can go into Lincoln and push the Huskers to 5 sets, the team that played in the national championship last year.
Yeah.
Beating Minnesota, like you said, beating Oklahoma the way they beat Oklahoma was impressive, and looking forward to really good things from that program the rest of the year. Also really looking forward to TCU soccer as well, Melissa, who has gotten off to a good start, and I know they got some exciting games coming up soon as well.
Yeah, Texas Tech on Thursday. They had a tough game at College Station last week. They've struggled on the road. The offense just hasn't really traveled for them yet. Other than the game at Charlotte, but they got shut out at Notre Dame, they got shut out at Texas A&M, won on the road at SMU in a 1-0 game at like 3 a.m. But Texas Tech won the league last year. Was a deep NCAA tournament appearance. This is a measuring stick game. You're going to be on your home field. Should have a great student crowd. It's Residence Hall night. That should bring out a lot of different students. So the atmosphere should be good. Plus, just with the home football game, I think everybody's kind of fired up. But this is a really critical game. I mean, this team has looked at times unbelievable, and at times they've looked a little discombobulated. And so I think that Eric Bell wants to see some consistency out of them on both sides of the ball. Their defense has been pretty good, pretty solid throughout the season, but we need to see that 2 or 3 goal explosion that we've had gotten used to at the beginning of the season has kind of fallen off. So I'm really interested to see how they play. I'm interested to see what lineups that Eric Bell uses and how deep he goes. He's been playing a lot of players early this season, but I wonder now that they get into a league game if that starts to slow down. And then this weekend they have Cal Poly, so they get a little bit of a break with the non-con. This is a crazy thing about soccer. Sunday is senior day. Like, it is September, and they will be celebrating the seniors on
Crazy.
This Sunday. So, again, highly encourage people to get out. It looks like we're going to have a beautiful week of weather once again here. It feels like fall. I don't know if it'll last, but I'm going to enjoy it. So get out and support our senior soccer frogs on Sunday, and what should be hopefully a really fun, entertaining game where they can take it to the Cal Poly Mustangs a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully so. And Tech has already suffered a couple injuries this year, including Sam Courtwright, a sophomore who was an integral part of Texas Tech's championship run last year as a freshman. So, take advantage of every opportunity that you've gotten. TCU definitely has a couple good ones coming up this week from a soccer standpoint. Melissa, 45 minutes and 33 seconds.
Well, you know why we shortened this one? It wasn't just LIU, but it's also because we have something really important to take care of after this podcast.
We do. Folks, I hate to say this. We do need to talk about smelling salts still as well, because we haven't done that yet. Mine still have not come.
And it's not because we don't want to do it. Yeah.
I ordered mine on Amazon so long ago, and it hasn't gotten here yet. But it will.
Amazon issues too.
Brutal. But yes, we are playing each other in our online Dave Campbell's Texas Football Dynasty this evening. So if you're listening to this, the game has already happened, and one of us is really happy, and the other one probably quit the pod. So thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. We had a great 12-year run. This might be it.
Yeah, this might be chalked.
We're gonna go ahead and get out of here and play that game. One of us will tweet in celebration. One of us will rage tweet, I'm sure, afterwards. But thank you to our partnerships with the Flying T Club and Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We're so grateful to work with two incredible organizations like them. TCU kicks off against UCF at 6:30 p.m. on Central Time on Fox this Saturday. It is a blackout. Get to the Carter. Just do it. Get to the Carter and support the Horned Frogs.
You're not going to want to miss this.
No, you're not. Melissa's going to break down that game with two incredible guests later this week. I'll be breaking down some of the latest NIL developments later this week as well on the next episode. So like and subscribe. Hit that follow button wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and on Twitter and on TikTok. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And smelling salts, hopefully soon. Whenever Amazon decides to deliver them, I'm ready to rock.
We're not ducking this. I just want people
to
got some complaints on Twitter. I'm not ducking this.
We're not ducking the smelling salts. We're not ducking the smelling salts.
Smelling salts for LIU. Okay?
Listen,
come on.
Here's the thing. If you have smelling salts, and we don't, obviously, because Amazon sucks. Shout out to Jeff Bezos. Text me. DM me. DM Melissa. Hit us up somewhere and say, I'll see you at the UCF game on Saturday. I'll drop them off for you.
Perfect.
I'd be down.
Yeah, I'll do it. We'll do a post game together.
We'll do a post game together live. Maybe we'll just do them in the press box after UCF.
Perfect. I'll do it.
Maybe this is big home game. Maybe we can talk about doing a little bit of a live stream on YouTube following the game, following post game press conferences and all that kind of stuff. And maybe the smelling salt payoff will happen live on YouTube in front of a live audience.
We could do that.
Who knows? We'll see. But for now, she's Melissa Treebwasser. I'm Jamie Plunkett. We'll talk to you next time. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.